Okay guys, welcome back to this series. We are up to Silver 2 and we are going to be introducing the concept of neutral. Now what is neutral? Well, it's basically this situation right here at the start of the match, right? A situation where you are too far away to touch your opponent and they are too far away to touch you. And so both of you are going to need to get into range in order to hit your opponent. But if you can hit your opponent, then they can hit you. And that leads into the first aspect of neutral, which is the danger zone. So we've got to understand the danger zone. And then the second aspect, which is called whiff punishing. So what we are trying to do when we get into the danger zone is to touch our opponent with our foot or our fist or something of that sort. But if our opponent's moving around like this, then we think that we're in range and we stick out a button, but it turns out that we're a little bit too far away. Now, when we stick out a button like that, we have what's called a hitbox, which is the part of our foot that can do damage. But our hitbox usually also has a hurt box, which means that our foot can be hit. So let's have a look at that. If I put Ken to just do his crouching medium kick, right? So I'm gonna hit his foot, right? Just like that. So I'm too far away to hit him, but I'm not too far away to hit his foot, okay? And that's called whiff punishing. So that's a big aspect of neutral, and that aspect of neutral is usually called footsies. So a situation where you are trying to hit your opponent in the foot. The reason why we usually work with a sweep is because in order to stop a sweep, you have to crouch block. So if you're just doing a lot of this, then you can get hit in the toes. You got to watch your toes. But of course, if you become crouch blocking, you become stationary. And so it's much easier then for your opponent to work out whether you're in range of one of their big buttons than if you're moving around. So it's always trade-offs in this game. The next aspect of the neutral that we need to talk about is what's called a frame trap. So a frame trap is basically where you have some frame advantage over your opponent. So for example, when Ken does his dragon lash, if you block that standing, he's +1. Let's try to have a quick look at that. Time. Right, so you can see there that he's in an advantage of 1. So my jab is 4 frames, but so's Ken's jab. And because he's +1, he's going to be able to get that jab out faster than I am going to get my jab out, and he will stuff my jab. Right, so we can try and even have a look at that. Right, so he stuffs my jab there. Okay, and he's always getting the counter hit, which means that he has the advantage. And stuffing moves is a big part of the neutral. So if I walk into my opponent's space here and press heavy punch, and he thinks I'm going to come a bit closer and maybe try to throw him or something, and he puts out a jab, but he puts it out a bit late, then my heavy punch is going to stuff his jab. All right. So those are kind of key notions in the neutral. We have frame traps, we have stuffing, we have footsies, we have whiff punishing. And then the last one we have is what's called a spacing trap. And for this one, I need to put Ken all the way into the corner so I can show you one of Ryu's main spacing traps, which is the following. Forward heavy kicks are not really worth doing in the mid screen so much, but here in the corner, it's a very powerful tool, and we'll cover it a lot more detail in Platinum. So when I'm hitting someone in the corner like this, I'm really far away from him. So I'm -4, which means that he can't really punish me there, but he doesn't want me to keep walking in. So he might be tempted to stick out a long button. Something like, let's put him onto block reversal with his crouching medium kick. Okay, so I hit him here. You see that crouching medium kick? He thinks it's gonna reach me, but it doesn't, right? It just whiffed. So a spacing trap, you basically do a button that leaves you far away from your opponent, or a sequence that leaves you far away, but close enough that your opponent thinks maybe they can hit you, but they actually can't, and then you whiff punish their attempt to punish you. So let's have a look at that. All right, that is quite a tasty combo. All right, but if you do it from too close, you'll get punished. So spacing traps are all about spacing, and Street Fighter is substantially a game of spacing. Okay, so we've covered the fundamental concepts of neutral, whiff punishing, footsies, spacing, frame traps, etc. Now we need to talk about how the neutral fits into Ryu's game. Ryu is the most neutral oriented character in Street Fighter. I don't mean that because he has the best buttons in neutral, although I think he does have a lot of good tools in neutral. I mean that Ryu doesn't have any way to skip the neutral, right? He has his fireball, but his fireball doesn't deal a lot of damage even on hit. Let's have a quick look at that. Right, I think it's 600. Yeah, 600 damage. So very little. You're going to have to hit someone with a lot of fireballs. And remember that every one of their jump-ins does a lot more damage than that. So generally speaking, Ryu's fireball is to make him more effective in the neutral, not to replace the neutral. Other characters like Ken have their neutral skip buttons, like Dragon Lash, that brings him all the way from where he is there to in front of your face, and he's plus. So he can just skip this whole Footsies game by coming in with the Dragon Lash. But most of the moves that do skip neutral, like Ken's Dragon Lash, Cammy's Spin Knuckle, Bison's Head Stomp, they all have relatively easy counters to them, usually Drive Impact. Okay, and one of the main counters to them is good old Fireball, right? So the first drill that we want to do is to practice putting pressure on Ken with our Fireball to get us into the neutral. So we've been talking mostly about fireball traps from out here, throwing 2 fireballs at a time, but we also want to like throw fireballs and then move into the danger zone, right? And just threaten our opponent here. We can threaten with the whiff punish, but in the lower grades, we're mostly going to be going in and hitting the solar plexus, right? Solar plexus is a really good neutral button because on hit, it's +6, so we can go into this combo, which I want you to practice. Right, that combo does 300 damage. It's super easy, right? All you need to do is your usual Drive Impact punish, but finish with the OD donkey kick. Right, then you do, when Ken's coming off the wall, when he's about halfway to, you back heavy kick and you cancel it into the Dragon Punch. Nice thing about it is that you can go into level 3 super. And that's going to deal an absolute stack of damage, right? 5,000 damage. This is a very easy combo to do. The other reason why Solar Plexus is really nice in the neutral is because it's plus on block. Oops, we've got to take Ken off his block reversal. Right. It is +3 on block, so it's one of the few buttons in the game really, but especially in Ryu's arsenal, that sets up a frame trap. Most buttons in Street Fighter 6 are minus on block. So you can see that the medium punch, which used to be +2 on block in Street Fighter 5, is now -1, and that's because they want to encourage people to use the drive rush system, which makes that button plus, right? But we got to spend drive gauge to do that, whereas the solar plexus is just plus on block, okay? Because it's plus on block, you can follow it up with a medium punch, and then if Ken tries to use his crouch light punch to get you out, you're going to counter hit him, right? Or you can follow it up with regular medium punch, and now you're +9, and you can get the medium, the low forward as it's called, the crouch medium kick. Right. Remember that we can only do that on counter hit, but that's a nice little combo to practice in your arsenal. You can also, if you've really demonstrated to your opponent that this is plus and they've started to block, because you're right in front of them afterwards, you can take a little micro walk forward and get the throw. Sometimes you don't even need to take the micro walk, right? You just hold forward and press throw and it'll get the job done. So that's a really nice little tool to add into your arsenal. And that's going to bring us to the first drill. So in the first drill, what we want to do is very similar to our usual drill where Ken's walking back and forth and jumping, but we're just going to have him walking backwards, okay? So let's have a look at this recording. Back and forward, but then backwards, okay? All right, you can record 2 versions of it maybe so that he has a little bit more variety in his movement. We're going to add to that Ken jumping forward as always, because we want to practice our anti-airs. We're also going to add to it Ken neutral jumping, because that's one of the main things people do against fireballs, is that they neutral jump occasionally. And then finally, we're going to add Ken throwing his own fireballs, because that's something that players will do in neutral. All right, and we're just going to start with that. And we want to bully Ken with our fireball, but rather than just fireball trapping, we occasionally want to just walk in and solar plexus, right? And if you get the hit with the solar plexus, try to do that donkey punch combo. Shouldn't have thrown an OD there, that was wasteful. Okay, and sometimes we're in the neutral. Throw out that solar plexus punch. and try to get your donkey kick combo. Alright, because 3000 damage is a lot of damage not to be sniffed at. Once you've done that a bit, then add in also a recording where Ken does the Dragon Lash. Okay? The reason why we want that is because what beats Dragon Lash? Fireball. Alright, so with Ryu, if you ever stop throwing fireballs, people will start doing nonsense to you. It's really easy to get intimidated or bullied into not throwing your fireballs anymore, but you just have to do it. Characters with really big neutral skip options often have a lot of anti-fireball tools that intimidate you, but you have to keep throwing fireballs. As soon as you stop throwing fireballs with Ryu, you've lost. Alright, so that's our first drill. Just instead of only using the fireball trap, we're going to get in occasionally and try to hit Ken with the solar plexus. Alright, the next thing that we need to do is that Ken's not always going to be moving backwards. Like, in the lower grades, people are incredibly terrified of this danger zone. Even in Diamond, I found that particularly the Bison players were terrified of this area. The Akumas just wanted to demon flip on you. No one really wants to be in here. They're scared of it. This is the domain of the high level player. You have to be able to get in here with no fear. And a lot of the content on the internet that's about playing neutral is about what to do in here, but your opponent has to have no fear before that content is worth paying attention to. So we don't really need to worry about any of that till we get to Diamond 4 or Master. Okay, but one thing we do want to worry about is just the very basic whiff punishes. Because sometimes when we're walking into our opponent's space like this, they're going to freak out and try to put out a button. They're going to put out a medium kick, they're going to put out something like this, maybe they'll put out a sweep, right? But they're always going to be hopefully whiffing that button, and then we've got to know what to do. So the next drill is we're going to record Ken just walking forward and doing crouch medium kick, this one. Right? And you just want to practice whiff punishing that, okay? Just with your heavy sweep. Alright, the reason why we use heavy sweep is because it's got really long range. It's only 9 frames, so it actually comes out really quite fast. And it has a forced knockdown, so after you whiff punish someone with it, they can't back rise, they have to get up in front of you. So it's a really good way to get your pressure started without having to spend bar. If you watch pro players who use Ryu, like Paladin, you'll see them use this whiff punish all the time. MDZ Dimmy also using this whiff punish all the time. It's the only aspect of neutral and whiff punishing that you need until you get to Master, honestly. So it's worth having in your arsenal here, just in case you do come across someone who plays a bit of neutral, and the Ryus and the Kens, they will play a bit of neutral. Chun-Li also often playing a bit of neutral, and we're just using it as a whiff punish tool. So add that in, have Ken walk backwards and forwards a bit, so that he's doing that sometimes, but also just walking around sometimes, and try to get a whiff punish. So we're trying to stay out of the range of the button and whiff punish him when he puts it out. Oh, my reaction is too slow. Okay. All right. Now we want to add in one more thing here, which is that we want to also record Ken doing his heavy kick. So this is one of the main buttons that Ken players will use in the neutral to try to bully you. Let's turn that sweep off and just have heavy kick on. That's heavy kick, right? It's Ken's longest range button, so people will put it out in the neutral a lot. It also, on punish counter, gives Ken a huge corner carry combo. But, look, it's -5, okay? So it's pretty easy to punish. Now, it's got more range than his sweep, so we have to not worry about it, right? We have to try to look for the sweep and just let him throw that button out. So we're looking to whiff punish that sweep. But if Ken does his heavy kick, oops, whoosh, that's what we don't want. If Ken does his heavy kick and we block it, we're going to try to whiff punish him. Okay? If the sweep is also -6, so if they do it from really close, you can also punish that. But mostly we are trying to whiff punish. Alright, and you can whiff punish both of these buttons. So you're practicing staying just out of his range, walking into his range, but then out of his range, and punishing those buttons with your heavy sweep. You could do bigger punishes. You could do that into donkey kick, right? But don't worry about that. Just work on this, right? It's better. It's really low mental effort. It's really straightforward, just crouch sweep, and it gives you a really nice knockdown into some really good Oki. All right. Now, the last thing we need to talk about is low forward in the neutral. All right, let's turn off all of Ken's recordings, except for the one where he's walking backwards. All right, now if Ken's doing this and he's walking backwards and I'm coming in for the solar plexus, right? He's mostly gonna be blocking it. Yeah, no, that's fine. Like, I'm +3. That's not a bad situation for me. But another thing that I should be mixing in here is trying to put in some low moves to force him to crouch block, right? So that he's more stationary. So occasionally I also want to do this. If he's blocking always standing up, then he's not watching his toes, and I can get free attacks this way. Okay, now this sequence, the low forward drive rush, is one of the most sort of prominent aspects of Street Fighter. Some people call this game low forward into drive rush the game. Ryu has this tool, and so you should use it, both to keep your opponent honest in the neutral, and for another reason. That other reason is that if you cancel this sweep into anything other than drive rush, it's going to be unsafe. So let's put Ken on block all. Oh, he's on block all, but he's on recordings. That's why it's not. Okay, so for example, if I cancel into donkey kick, I'm going to be -8. Right now, if I really space that out against some characters, it might be safe, but against Ken at that distance, he can reach you with his crouch medium kick, no problem. So donkey on block is not safe. Even fireball on block, it doesn't quite push you back as far as you'd like, and you're -9 off a heavy fireball. So off a light fireball or off OD, you're safe. But light fireball, if I remember correctly, doesn't combo. So in any case, that's not really ideal, and fireball doesn't do that much damage. Whereas this sequence with the drive rush is very safe on block. Okay, I can go straight into this. It's almost a frame trap. We don't need to talk about how it's not a frame trap. Your opponent can jab you there, but no one in the low grades is going to jab you, and you're going to end up +2 after the heavy punch, which means that you can throw if they block. But even if they don't block, all you need to worry about is that sequence, right? Into light punch. No one at the low grades is going to bother you with that. If you get a hit, then instead of finishing with the fireball, you want to finish with Tatsu. Right, and you've done that sequence before, where you do the drive rush into heavy punch, back heavy punch, because it's part of our big beefy corner combo. Right? So I want you to put that into your arsenal as well, and then go back to the original drill where you're throwing fireballs onto a Ken who's moving backwards, and sometimes you're going to throw out the solar plexus, and sometimes you're going to throw out this one. Okay? And that's basically it, and I think that's all you need to know about the neutral in this low grade. As fireballs is the main thing for Ryu, but the point of the fireball is to let you get into this neutral space in a confident and assertive way so that you can start throwing around these kind of tools. Okay? I'll see you in the next video.